So you've signed up for Component Studio. Now what? You need a project. So let's go in and start from scratch, and I'm just going to walk you through how to create new components in Component Studio from beginning to end. This video will be a little bit long because we're going to do an entire project in one sitting, but it's important that you see how all of the pieces come together. So we'll start with a project. The system is automatically going to create a project for us, so we can rename that one, or we can create a fresh project. I'm going to create a fresh project. Now that I have a project, I'm going to make that my active project. What that does is it says, hide everything else in the system. I only want to see stuff from this project. Let's go over to fonts. I'm going to need a font specifically for this particular project. The system will come with about 2,000 fonts, but I want my own specific font that I have in mind just for this project. It's called France. So I will go ahead and upload that font. Now I have to answer some questions about this font. You can see up here what the headings are: category, weight, style, add to project, so what project we're going to add to. In this case, France is a serifed font. It is normal weight. It is not italic. And we're going to add this to our rendezvous project. When I upload this font will be available only to me because I've uploaded my own personal font here. So you can see I can still edit this stuff, whereas I could not edit the features of the fonts that are already in the system. I can also delete this font at any time if I want to. When I upload it, it automatically adds it to the project that we have selected right here. I have it in my palette. If I needed additional fonts, I could add those to my palette as well, just by hitting this paintbrush icon. But for this project, I just need the one font. Now we have our font. Let's go and create a data set. I'm going to skip images and icons for right now. We'll come back to that in a minute. So a data set is basically like a spreadsheet with the data for your cards or tiles or chits or whatever. It is where each row represents one component. So one card, one tile, one chit, that sort of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and create my set here. So we're going to call this hunting. We're going to create a bunch of chits in this particular example, and they're going to go in this category called hunting. So I go ahead and hit that. Now, in my case, you can just edit it right here in the site, set up your spreadsheet, but I've created it in advance so you didn't have to wait here while I typed in a bunch of stuff. I created this little spreadsheet right here. You can see I've set quantity, name, and I'm going to actually rename that to lowercase name, icon that I'm going to display on there, a background, a value, and then how many pelts come with the thing. So I'm going to go ahead and export this to CSV. Now I'm going to come back out here to the site, and I'm going to go ahead and import this CSV file. Hunting.csv right here, and I'm going to click import. It asks me if I want to overwrite my existing data. I don't have any in this case, so I don't really care. So now we have our data that has been imported. I could have uploaded my icons and my backgrounds into the images and icons system here on the site. I happen to already have them in Dropbox, so I was using Dropbox URLs. I just put those URLs directly into my spreadsheet. If you don't have Dropbox or you don't have Google Drive or some other place where you store your images, then go ahead, by all means, use the images and icon system to upload them to the site. For me, in this case, it's more convenient because I'm already storing them in Dropbox. I'm just going to use the Dropbox URL that I already have. Every spreadsheet that you upload, every component data set that you create, has to have at least a quantity field and a name field. Beyond that, you will add your own custom fields. So I could do that right here. If I needed another column, I'll call it another column, like so, and hit add. And so now I have another column, and I could start adding whatever data I want in there. Now I don't need that in this case, so I'm going to go ahead and remove that. But we need the data that's in here for this particular project. So again, I have quantity and name, and then I've added these extra things. There's an icon that's going to go in the foreground. There is a background image that we're going to put on each chit. Each chit will have a value because this is like currency in the game. And then we also have how many pelts does this particular chit come with. Obviously, blueberries don't have pelts, and neither does wood, so that's why they're both 0. But deer, we're going to get 2 pelts worth of value out of that, and 1 pelt worth of value out of a rabbit. We now have our component data exactly as we need it, and we are ready to go design. So I'm going to go over here to designs, and we're going to create our first design. So we're going to call this design hunting. I'm using the Rendezvous project, and in this case, we are creating medium circle chits. So I'm going to go over here to small punch outs, and I'm going to go to medium circle chit and select that. For this one, we have the back and the face of the chit are going to be identical. So I'm going to switch this over to same, and now the back and the face will be identical. I don't have to design them separately. And then we have our component set. What component set are we going to use? We only have the one that we've already created. And then turn is if you are using a card, let's say, or something that's not square. But if you're using, let's say, a poker card, naturally it is in portrait format. Turn will turn it into a horizontal or landscape format. So I'll go ahead and hit manage there, and that immediately brings me into the editor. If I want to get out of here, I just hit back to designs, and here I am, back to my designs, and then I can just hit this edit icon right here, and I'm back in the editor again. We can see that we already have a template overlay that is pulled in from the Game Crafter, so we can very easily see where our cut line is going to be and our safe zone and that sort of stuff. So that helps us out right off the bat. We also have our list of components right up here. We can cycle through those, and of course right now we're not going to see anything different because we haven't designed anything yet. But we'll get started by creating our design now, and then you'll see how all of these things come together. Over here on the right hand side, you'll see the list of steps. If you're familiar with something like Photoshop or GIMP or something like that, you might have a concept of a layer. Steps are very similar to a layer, but they're not quite the same because basically Component Studio is a workflow system. So each step is a step along the path in the workflow. It's a little bit different, but it's a very similar kind of concept. So I want to add a step that will add an image because we're going to start with applying the background to this thing. So we'll go ahead and hit add image. And so now that we have an image here, we can title it. So I'm going to call this background. Let's go ahead and put our image in here. Now, I could just paste an image URL directly into this field, but that isn't very useful from a sense of automation. The whole point of Component Studio is that you're going to automate the design work that you are doing. So I want to pull in a variable from our data set. So if I look down here, we have our component variables. I can actually just click on background here, and it will put that in my clipboard, and then I can paste that variable directly into this field. Anywhere you can type, you can put in a variable. So that makes it really simple to replace any field with a variable. I've got my image in the background here. I want to resize this image. I don't know, I can't remember how big I made this image originally, but what I want to do here is I want that image to be resized so it fits exactly the size of this image or this component type. So this component type is 300 by 300 pixels. I could just type in 300 by 300 right into this resize field here. That's simple enough. But I want to show off some of the other kind of cool features of the system here. So I'm going to show you a fancier way to do the same thing. I'm going to copy this system variable of width and paste it right in there. And then I'm going to copy the system variable of height and paste it right in here. And so now it is resizing to the width and height of the component. The thing that's cool about that is if we were to go back out here to designs and maybe switch this to a large standee, let's say, and then come back in here and edit, now it has automatically resized our image, our background image, to fit that thing because we told it to resize it to fit the component type rather than just typing 300 by 300 in here. Now, obviously, I don't want to do that in this case, so I'm just going to go back and put medium circle chit back in. But I wanted to show off why that's a cool and important feature to know about. And at this point, my background is done. I don't care about the background anymore, so I'm going to go ahead and minimize that. I don't need to see its properties anymore. If I want to come back, I can always, put it back in again, so I can see all the pieces. But that isn't important for right now. So we're just going to go ahead and minimize that. So now let's put that icon in there. We have that foreground icon that we want. I need to add yet another image here. And again, I could paste an image URL in here, but that is not what I want to do in this case. Again, I want to pull in from my component variables. So I'm going to click on icon down here, and I'm going to go ahead and paste that in there. And so now our icon is sitting there. But as you can see, the icon is too big for our needs here. We're going to need to resize that. In this case, I want to resize this to a specific size. I've shown you the fanciness. Let's just go ahead and type in some pixels, because a lot of times that's just the easiest way to go. So I want this to be a little bit bigger than half the size of my overall image. I can type that in there and do this. However, if my blueberry image was not square, it's going to disproportionately scale it. So if I want it to proportionally scale, I would just fill out one of these fields, either the X or the Y, and it'll proportionally scale to X or Y. We want to go ahead and go into our position, because it's obviously not in the right place. So I'm going to go ahead and say that this icon probably needs to go somewhere around 65 and 75. That ought to get me where I need to go here. Now I've got my blueberry positioned there, and I've also got my background in place. Now you might be thinking, well, we're just working on the blueberries, but no, we actually are working on all of these different things at the same time. So I can switch to deer here, and it will go in and render deer. And I can go right back to blueberries. I can go through deer. I can click on to the next one. And now here's my rabbit. And I can click on to the next one, and here's the wood. The first time it renders, it takes a little bit longer to render because it has to download those images from its original source. But as we go flipping through here, you can see that it's rendering this really, really fast. Now it's time to move on to the next part. I'm done with my icon, so I'll go ahead and minimize that one. And now I'm going to add another image where we're going to put pelt 1. All right. Now, in this case, I'm not going to pull in data from an outside source from our data set. I want to put in a static pelt icon image here. So I need to go get that from Dropbox and just paste that right into this place. So I'll go over here to my folder, and I need to go find that image that I'm looking for. So I have that right down here in the resources area. I'm going to go ahead and grab pelt. And right click on that, and I'm going to hit this copy Dropbox link, and I'm going to paste this right into this space right here. So now I've got my pelt icon. You can see that it's positioned it right up here. It's too big, it doesn't fit. That's fine, because we're going to resize that to fit right where we need it to go. So again, I'm going to use my resize X here, and I'm going to go down to 75 pixels on that. So you can see that it's much smaller now. It actually fits, but it's still in the wrong place. So let's go ahead and position that baby over here at 60 by 60. Yeah, now that's looking a lot better. It's really close to the cut line, but I don't really care in this case. I'm okay if a little bit of the pelt gets cut off. We're outside the safe zone, but we have some of it in the safe zone. That's the important bit for this particular icon. The thing is, though, that right now, if I was to go back to blueberries have pelts, and that doesn't make any sense. And also, wood has pelts. We don't want wood and blueberries to have pelts, so we need to respect the value that was in our spreadsheet. So what we need to do there is we're going to need to go into the advanced section, and we're going to go down to conditionally render. Now this is going to be a little bit fancy, but just bear with me a little bit here. So what I want to do is I want to go grab my pelts variable, and I'm going to paste that into conditionally render. Okay. And so you can see that it has already gone off of the wood here, and that's because conditionally render is basically if it returns 0 or empty, then it won't show the thing. But if it returns something other than that, like a 1, in the case of deer, or in the case of rabbits, we have a 1, so now it's showing there. And in the case of deer, we have 2, so it'll show there. And in the case of blueberries, we have 0. So we're all good. We've got our pelt, is being conditionally rendered based on what's in that field. Blueberries and wood don't have the pelts, but deer and rabbits do have the pelts. We can go ahead and close this advanced tab. We've got our pelt in place, but as you remember, deer have 2 pelts. When we were looking at our spreadsheet, deer can have 2 pelts. So what I want to do is I want to minimize this pelt 1 here, but I'm going to use this duplicate function here to go ahead and create a second pelt. So we'll go in here, we'll create a second pelt. It's exactly where the other pelt was, so you actually can't tell, but it's actually rendering right here. The problem is we don't want it to render there because we need the player of the game to be able to see that there is a second pelt here. So we need to render the pelt in a different location. So I'm going to change this position from 60-60 to 190, 120. And now you can see that we have our second pelt in a different place on the same chit. So we're good there. The only problem is that our blueberries don't have the pelts, and our wood don't have the pelts, but our rabbit has the second pelt, and the rabbit shouldn't have a second pelt here. And the reason for that is that anything that's not 0 is going to return true, and therefore it'll get rendered. So we need to do something even fancier here with this conditional render on this one. We're going to need to do if pelts is greater than 1, then we'll render it. And see, now it's not on the rabbit anymore, but if I go over here to the deer, boom, I've got 2 pelts. So if we're at rabbit, we got 1. If we're at wood, we've got none. If we're at blueberries, we've got none. And if we're at deer, we have 2. So we've really just done some pretty cool stuff right now. We've got our chits all rendered, and we're almost done. But we have one last thing to do. We need to put that value. Remember, we have this value field here. We need to get that rendered onto our chit. So we need to add some text. So far, we've only been dealing with images here, as you can see. So now let's add some text to our chit. We're going to get rid of this default text that comes in here, because we're just going to go right down here, grab our value, and paste that right in here. We've got our value. You can't see it right now because it's black text on a black deer. But we'll go ahead, let's center this, and then let's go ahead and change it to our France font. Now, that's the font that we uploaded before. Again, we're still black here, so it's not working for me. I want something else in here. Now, I could use this fancy little controller here to go pick a color. I can just type in names for stuff, though. So I'm just going to type in gold. Likewise, I could put a variable in there. So if I wanted it to change on every chit, I could have had a variable in my spreadsheet for the color that it should render, and then we'll just change the color as needed. But in this case, I want gold. Then we're going to go ahead and position it. We don't like where it's at right now. It's kind of at the top there. I'd like it to be kind of on the deer's head or in the body. So let's just try and center it. What we want to do here is we want to build a box that we're going to do our text into to be just perfectly where we need it to be on the deer. So we need to see where we're actually drawing our text. So we're going to go in the Advanced tab here, and we're going to go down and look at this little function right here, Outline Text Area. If I flip that on, now we've got a little box here showing us exactly where we're rendering our text. Now, our text isn't going to be all that big, so we don't want to put it up here like this. What we want to do is we want to have that be the height of our font. So in this case, I want to make our font 80 pixels tall, like so. And then what I want to do is also make the size of our text box 80 pixels tall as well. So I'm going to go ahead and say 80 right here. Oops, that's not the right one. Let's do 80 over here on the height. Okay, so now our text box is 80 pixels tall. So we're in that kind of same range right there. Now you'll note that the box actually extends down a bit from the top of the text. The reason for that, with a font, you can have things like a Y or a G that will extend down below the baseline of the font. Now, I'm still not really happy with this, so what I think I want to do is I want to move our font down just a little bit. The position of our font right now is using some system variables, as you can see from down here. It just automatically put those in for us. This says center mex and center may. You can really break that out into center me x, center me y. So that's how it's getting pushed right here into the center like it is. If I was to just take this out and put a 0 there, like so, you can see now that our text is pushed over to the side. So it figured out where it had to position itself based on the width that we specified up here, exactly how to center that text box along that area. But I want this center me y to actually not be quite centered. I want it to go down a little bit further. So what I can do is actually extend that by simply going in here and saying plus 20. I've gone ahead and said I'm going to move it down 20 pixels. Let's go take a look at our other icons and see if we like that position. I think overall that looks pretty good. So let's keep that. But obviously we don't need our outline anymore, so we'll go ahead and turn off the outline. One thing that would be nice is if we had a little bit of a shadow on here, because in certain circumstances, like right here, this 3 is not quite all the way over the deer. So I would like there to be a shadow on this text. So I'm going to go ahead and put a shadow on there. And I'm going to change the shadow to black. And now I've got, you can see there's a little bit of shadow there. It's offset by 5 pixels. Is this the right way? I don't know. Let's take a look at our other things and see if this makes everything look good. Oh, shadow isn't going to do it because we've got this piece is sticking out above there. So a shadow isn't going to quite cut it. So instead of a shadow, maybe what I want is a font stroke. And so let's do this one in black. Okay, so now our 1 is a little bit more defined. Let's make it a few more pixels though. There we go. Now the 1 is got this black border around it, so it looks good on the wood. If we go over here, it looks good there. Yep. If we go over here, it looks good on the deer. Yeah, it looks good everywhere. Okay, so we have officially achieved good font. So now we're done. We've built our chits. The only thing I should probably do here is type in value so I can remember what this is when I come back later. What is this field for? And so now that I have that in there, I'm good to go. Let's go ahead and actually export this data. So we can do that by using this little arrow right here. If I click that, you can see we can export the images as a zip. So what that's going to do is just actually export high resolution 300 dpi images into a zip file that we can go use wherever we want. We can also export as a print and play, so we can do this at home, just print these out and see what we get. So I'm going to go ahead and export that right now, and let's see what our print and play looks like. Okay, so we have our print and play right here. It's going to send us an email with the link, but it also puts it right here in the UI for us. So if I click on this, it downloads a PDF that we can open up and take a look at. And so here you can see it's giving us some crop marks. Now it doesn't know how to do crop marks for circles because you're going to need to get a special punch to get out circles, but it gives us crop marks if we were cutting these out as squares, which will be the easiest thing to do at home. Here's our little crop lines. It's taking into account the quantities that we put in there. We said we wanted 6 deer, so there are 6 deer, and we've got our quantities of all the other things. And then you can see as we get down here, it has actually reversed the order of things as compared to up here. And the reason for that is because when you put them front to back, they need to line up because the page will be reversed on the other side. This allows you to print things out really nicely at home, and then you have some chits to play with at home, no problem. So we've got our print and play file. That's easy peasy. Now let's go ahead and do one more thing. Let's export this to the Game Crafter. So what we need to do here is go to export our images to the Game Crafter. I'm going to go ahead and click that. I'm going to go ahead and choose a game. I've got all kinds of games in here that I could work on, but in this case, we're going to go ahead and work on Rendezvous. And then I have the option here, do I want to update the medium circle chits that have changed, add new ones, and leave the rest alone? Or do I want to delete all the medium circle chits in this game and upload fresh ones? So let's just delete all the other ones. I don't need those other ones anyway. We click upload here, and now Component Studio goes ahead and logs into the Game Crafter for you and automatically uploads all of your images into the Game Crafter. It will send you an email as soon as it is done with that import. Thanks for watching this tutorial on Component Studio.